Hi, I'm Dr. Rahman, and welcome to Black Women's Health. The divas are back, and they're talking about working while Black. And boy, do they have a lot to say.
My question is, how important, how easy is it to find a mentor? Can you climb the corporate ladder without one? So, one, I am not in corporate America. However, I think that finding a mentor crosses all industries. So, for being a African American female nurse professional, it that started her career in a academic medical center. In a large major city, it is and was a challenge to find a mentor. And as I aged in my career, not age-wise as far as my age, but years of practice, I found it more challenging, but the conversation was very common. And so it was, how do you find one? How do you go about asking a person or persons to be a mentor, and what should that person look like? I think there's two various schools of thought of, should they look like you, to have the conversation of commonality and maybe some shared experience. And when they don't look like you, how is that relationship, and can they add something different to that relationship? So I know there's various schools of thought. So I like both concepts. I don't have an official mentor. It's something that I would like, but if it comes, it comes. But I also know there's a school of thought as you have to be assertive and when it comes to be, mentorship. So I would say, and I think it also depends on your community, your professional community when you get started. I think that sometimes maybe Caucasian people might fall in their lap, a mentor, simply because of the skin that they're in. But I think for us, it's more of a challenge to find. So, and can you climb the corporate ladder without one? I think as Black women, we could hit a ceiling, hit some type of ceiling if you don't have one.
I would say, yes, you could climb it. It's harder without a mentor. I was like, the mentors I have sort of developed organically. I know when I first started out in investment banking, they had sort of a formal sort of mentorship program, and I would meet with somebody periodically, but I would say that probably did very little for either of us. The mentors I have found have been people I've served on boards with or have worked with, who just because you just sort of meshed and just maintained those relationships and sort of started informally as a mentor. But I think what's even more important for mentorships is sponsorships. I think if you have a sponsor, that far outweighs a mentor. And a sponsor is more intentional. Like a mentor will give you guidance and advice, but a sponsor is usually within your organization, and they've said, like, I'm going to make sure Sharon gets the next level. So they're talking about you, and so they're usually senior to you, to their peers, inviting you to committee, sort of telling you about promotions, grooming you. And I definitely feel like there needs to be a bigger emphasis on sponsorships than mentorship.
I'll agree with that. I'd agree with that. And I think about that, but most of my career, I've just kind of done it on my own. I mean, I've been fortunate to have really good, strong female supervisors and bosses. Now, not corporate. I've always worked in the nonprofit world and education. Until I got to education, I had a Black male, and he was probably the first opportunity I had. Someone really was like, I'm going to put you here. You need to be here. This is where I want you to be. This is what you want to do. I'm going to make sure you're in this room. You're going to represent. But most of it, I never, when I was early in my career, that never really came up. It never really came up. There was never that opportunity. It was never formally said. So, like I said, I had really good examples of bosses. So that's how I learned to be kind of the supervisor that I am. But it was not, I never saw it as like intentionally, motivating or essentially, being there to help you promote. It was like, this is just what we did. Until now, and then and then it was definitely because I'm like, well, I need to get to this point, and I know how to ask for it, and I knew how to approach a black woman who was very, very, very higher than me in the world. And I was like, she said, what do you want to do? This is what I need you to do for me, and she did. But to your point, you got to be a little more assertive. You got to ask for it, and be articulate about what you need. Because if not, we're not going to guess.
Did you ask for your sponsors?
So I can't say I have a sponsor. Like, I have mentors, but I have not found, like, I would say to date have not had a sponsor where I felt like someone's taken me under the wing. And I think it went for the mentors I have. Like, it wasn't like, will you be my mentor? I think it's sort of, we have that relationship. It's just sort of colleagues, stayed in contact with that we on a regular basis might have a phone call or get coffee or have lunch and sort of pick those brains. Like, if there's, evaluating different job opportunities, or if struggling with a colleague at work, they have been sort of sounding board. So never had a conversation, will you be my mentor? But those three individuals have definitely served that role for me. But it was definitely being intentional, and sometimes it's me sort of making sure, like, hey, are you free for lunch, and sort of going to where they work to make it convenient for them.
So the burden was on you to nurture the relationship?
I can't say. I would say now it's probably, well, with one, it's certainly mutual. Like, I feel like she's reaching out to me saying, like, hey, like, are you free on, like, Friday to catch up? I would say for the other two, it's probably me sort of saying, initiating our contact.
And are the two of you mentoring each other, or is she clearly your mentor?
I would say for the majority, they're clearly my mentor. I would say with one, that there have been opportunities that I've been able to support her, and it's sort of like she's bounced ideas off of me.
Okay. Anyone else?
I've worked just about in every industry that you could think of. I just find that coming along when I did, there were no real mentors and no sponsorship. So what happened is that I ended up I started a job, for example, I worked in New York, wasn't supposed to be in New York, and this guy said to me, he was white male, he says, I like the way you do what you do, and I need you to come and work for me because we're closing your office. So that was a very unique opportunity. But I've had other things where things have just fallen through the hole, and you think the people have your back, and they're like, they don't. So you really,
I heard that.
and that's happened more than enough time. And it doesn't matter if they're black or if they're white. If people really want to help you, they're going to help you. If they're not, they're not. And I'm working in government right now, and it's a whole nother. I worked in a very fast. I worked in as a analyst, a treasury analyst. Very, very fast paced. I worked 7 days a week. You had no choice. But now I'm working in government, and it's like, when is my boss going to review my stuff? My stuff is ready to roll. I couldn't ask Terry, and I love my boss. He is a great guy, but he couldn't be my mentor. He's been at the same job for 39 years. He's not going to go anywhere until he retires. And I mean, he worked his way up, but he doesn't have he can't offer me anything, so if I want to move on, I have to do it myself.
Yeah, when two things. One, I found that a lot of times when I needed to bounce something off that was going on at work, I would look to my friends who either in a like profession or have had similar experiences or are at the same kind of level in their own realm to bounce stuff off of it. Did this come out right? This is what happened. How do you feel about this? Do you think I handled this well? Because again, if you're bereft of that in your own universe, you go to, and of course it's someone that's going to be honest with you, right. and not just, but they will tell you honestly, you didn't, that was a mess, or you should have done this, or here's what I've done. So that's been helpful. And you're right, government is slow. People been there a long time, so sometimes if they've been there a long time, they don't even have the energy sometimes to offer, because they've been there so long, and they're like, I'm counting days to retirement. They
That's
mean
exactly what he said.
but also they know so much, it's hard for them to give it to, because they know it rote. So it's hard to teach or show someone, and then they don't have time. So, and I think timing now, time now is so precious. It feels like even if you've wanted to be a mentor to someone, or you wanted to ask them to be it for you, it has to be so right and intentional, because if not, you'll say, yeah, I'll be your mentor, and 9-10 months will go by, you will not have heard from them. And not because you don't want to, but things just slip, and you don't get that opportunity to nurture it, because there's so many expectations. I think it's hard. I think it's hard to find, black, white, or whoever, it doesn't matter. I think it's hard.
Yeah.
And I think Heloise made a good point in terms of mentorship. Like, it doesn't necessarily always have to be someone like senior to your levels. I think like there is sort of peer mentorships where there is sort of calling colleagues, maybe someone at a different city or university or hospital or institution, to sort of bounce ideas off of. And I would say especially now, where sort of our peers, we're all not just starting out in our careers. So we have peers that have years of experience.
Yep.
There are peer mentors. That is a thing.
Yeah, there's a thing.
There is a thing. So for those type of situations where you need to have that same level conversation of like sounding board, what to do for this, but to your point of, this is my career goal or my next step. I think the person that is in that higher role, there's a lot of benefit to that type of mentoring, because they have that knowledge and expertise in that particular area to kind of help you along. So I think these different type of mentors definitely have a benefit. It's just a matter of what you need at that moment.
Oh yeah, I think that's it.
And to your point, I met a girl in March. She worked for a big pharma. The guy said, you have this, this, and this. She was extremely bright. You need to take this. You need to go this route, because this is going to get you to where you want to be. It didn't work out. He retired. So then she ended up leaving the company because there was no place for her to go. And that's the other stumbling block. If you're very bright, you're a riser within an organization. If you've got 20 plus years in, your boss retires, never tells you. You come to work one day, and guess what? She left the company, which is sad.
Retired.
Yeah,
or maybe he was able to say he retired.
No, but he really did retire, and she was left holding the bag. So the new manager brought in the person he was mentoring. So she did not get the job.
I think too, at a certain point in your career, in your life, now at whatever your age I am, there's more of my contemporaries are counting the years till retirement now. Literally. Yeah. So anyone that's only 5 or 6 years ahead of me, it ain't gonna help me much. Because they're like, you still wanna like, yeah, I still got something else I wanna do. Even the job I have now, I had said, but I want to be a chief of staff, and I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. And the opportunity presented itself, and I've been very vocal about it, and it worked. But anyone that is my peer is definitely more on the
they're on the clock.
They're on the clock, and I want to work a little longer. So it's tough there too. They're not really a big help. So peer mentoring and reaching outside of my linear, government has worked for me. And
Are you comfortable interpreting and or speaking up in an office meeting? Well, yes. Yes.
And stirring up some trouble.
Have you been in meetings where you haven't been listened to, or people have talked over you, or someone else has taken credit for all of the above?
All the above.
So when you're trying to get your point across and someone starts talking over you, what do?
This is what I do now. Okay. Talk over top of me, that's fine. When you get done, I'll go back to what I have to say, because and they're like, oh, well, you can go ahead. No, you finish your point, and I'm going to move on to my point, because your point has nothing to do with what we're here to discuss. and it just literally shuts them down, like, because that's rude.
Yes.
You're not even listening to me. The person the person has already cut me off.
Yes.
They have their thought in their head. You're not listening. And I have a girl that I work with that's like that, and I said to her in a meeting, I said, you hear, but you don't listen. And there's a difference. You have to be an active, like a teacher, but you have to be an active listener, because you're talking about something that doesn't even pertain to what we're discussing. You're going to the left, and we're really talking about kind of something in the middle of the road. This same person asked me one day, well, you know how to do Excel really well. I said, well, I want you to teach me. I don't teach. I'm not a trainer. That's not what they paid me to do here. And so, you have to, it's not being nasty, but there are people, because they know you have a certain skill set, they want to take advantage of it and hone in on your skill. So if you don't speak up, guess what? You get used, and they will make you do their work, and that's not happening, because I've been in situations where we've all had, where you kind of fall in it, and then you go home and you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? This is not right. And then you're trying to write it, so you just say it, and I do it in a professional manner, but I think you just have to say.
I don't see you raising your voice.
No, I will not raise my voice, because raising your voice is not going to get them to listen. It's when you don't raise your voice, it's like, oh, I really kind of messed up.
In those situations, have you felt as though, even though you said what you had to say, it was still disregarded?
It may be, but guess what? You're going to come back to me and ask me what I meant, what I said, and what have you, and guess what? You should have been listening in the meeting. I gave you my thoughts. Did you take any notes?
Say anything?
I won't give you my thoughts or anything. No, because you're in a meeting, you're thinking of other things, playing in the playground somewhere, and just watching, right, exactly. And that's not what we were talking about. Yeah, but the other thing is that the one thing I don't like about meetings many times is that you know your work. Like, I know my work. I've been accounting for years. And someone will try to piggyback off of what I'm saying. So I try to keep up in my field. And I was like, well, let me just make a clarification here. That's why we have to stay on top of everything we do. You have to stay on top of it. I said, let me clarify this for you. That can't be done because it's XYZ. Well, what does that mean? Oh, well, Google has everything. I think you need to look it up. But the bottom line is that you're talking about something that we can't, let's say, we can't do because we're not going to get, reimbursed for or whatever. Oh, well, where'd you find that information? So as a Black person, we always have to stay one step ahead. You have to be prepared for the silly questions. I was in a meeting today with my boss, and he said, well, what do you think about these crazy times we have? I said, well, they probably come in and just write it down on a piece of paper. I came in at 7:41. They should quarter it up to the next 15 minutes because they're not getting paid for that. But these people are paying for it, which means they're cheating themselves. He's like, I never thought of any of that. But we have to always think outside the box. You always have to always be prepared. And that's, I find many times I'm in defensive mode because I really know my stuff. And you really don't. So now you're going to try to challenge me. So sometimes, actually,
most educated, we have all the degrees.
We got every single degree,
but still not good enough.
It's so funny you say, because the last 2 weeks, and if Dawn was here, she'd probably say the same thing. We are exhausted, and as Black women leaders, we are tired because you have to deal with all the isms. You got to manage what you have to do. You have to be that much more prepared. You have to always be on point. You're always scanning the room and listening for the microaggressions and the obvious aggressions. And it's exhausting.
Choosing what to ignore, what to respond to.
What should I just let go?
Yes.
Because my sister, Kyle, you just didn't. No, sometimes I just, it's pointless. But you still hear it, you still feel it, you still bring it home, and it's exhausting. We are exhausted.
So what do you do when someone tries to speak over you?
Me?
Yeah, I think that
very rarely
hear that.
Very rarely do people speak over me, because I say that to say I sit. My style is to sit back and I listen. I listen. I'm here and I try to listen to everybody, and I don't say much. But then when I do, and anyone who's working will tell you, okay, when I've thought about it, I'm very clear about what I'm going to say. I'm very clear about what I'm laying out, and I'm very precise. So very rarely I get talked over. And when I do, I just sit there and look at it. It shows on my face. It shows on my face. I'll just look at the person. And when I'm saying, "Are you done?" my face will say, "Are you done?" And then I'll say, "Okay, so this is what we're going. This is where this is going."
Yeah.
So you totally ignore the comment?
No, I acknowledge it, but then I keep moving.
Right, that's what you almost have to do.
That's what you have to do.
Because those are the type of people that take over a meeting and have absolutely no idea what in the world is going on. They make it go south. And then, or they talk about a topic, like I have something that has so irrelevant, and it's like, I'm waiting for my boss. He doesn't say anything. I said, well, you know what? Can we get back to what we're saying? Because I actually have a meeting in like an hour. And because if you don't, you're all the way over here. You'll never accomplish what you're trying to get done. And I'm not a meeting person. And so meetings just totally annoy me. And so you need to be prepared. Like, where's your agenda? What are we discussing? I can't go into a meeting. Oh, well, we're just going to talk about this.
Whose meeting is this and where's the agenda? That's the first thing. If it's not my meeting, that's the first thing and why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I here?
I'm still waiting for, I think so my classic retort would be, so using Representative Maxine Waters for claiming my time.
That's right.
I would say that ideally in my head, that's how I would respond to someone trying to talk.
You would say what?
Well, Maxine, it was like, she was some congressional hearing, it was like a white man talking to her, and she was like, reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my time. I feel like that's what I want to do. And that's what I'm going to say. But I think sort of what has been is like, give me 30 more seconds or 6 more seconds, I'll be done. Then I'll turn the mic over to you and I promise to respond the same. So that has been my standard line. But in my mind, I just want to say reclaiming my time. Like I say, when I do my meeting after I resign, that's going to be, I'm going to try that line out.
And I don't have a problem. And if I'm, especially even if I'm the facilitator or not, I know how to, like you said, top the people that are talking too much or going off topic. Can we table this parking lot, whatever you want to call it? But I don't have a problem doing that either, because we have some folks that can just.
Oh my goodness!
Go ahead.
I don't get cut off often or talked over, I should say often, but I'm in a new environment now, and where I'm either, depending on the meeting, I'm either the only or one of the very few.
Yes.
And so there are times when, I don't say anything until either if I'm on the agenda until it's my turn, or if I feel like I have something worthy of saying, because sometimes I'm just like, I don't really have an opinion on any of this. But for me, when I am cut off, I'm at a point in my life where, if we want to focus on Karen, I'm just like, she gets no breaks anymore.
Absolutely.
None. Meaning, they cut me off. Excuse me, I was speaking. I was speaking.
Yep.
Or I'll say, before you interrupted me, because, and I think both of those comments are very professional, because cutting someone off is unprofessional.
It's unprofessional.
And I'm just, because until I'm just in that phase of life, you are doing wrong, you are rude, and I'm here for it to tell you, but tell you in a way that I'm not Keisha. And sometimes I feel like, and I know what you're about to say, because I'm assuming they might not know they're being rude.
They do know
they're being rude.
No, because
more do than not.
They assume in the natural order of things, I'm on the top.
Okay.
And so
I'll agree to that.
Following the natural order of things, I see no problem with me asserting myself, and you should just acquiesce.
And that's why I interrupt and say, before you interrupted me, or I am speaking, because since it's so innate in them, well, let me tell you, this is innate in me to tell you what you are doing unprofessionally in this setting.
So now we think, now you're just being an angry black woman.
No, because it's not coming across angry. Well, first of all, she wouldn't say that in the meeting, but it's not coming over angry, and that's where I think it's the more power of it as well. It's
if you know your topic.
Now.
I think if you know your topic, like with me, you can dance around me all you want. I know I was in a meeting and they were like, "Well, we don't understand it." I said, "It's because I've done this stuff." Oh, I didn't know anything about that. I said, "Because you weren't listening." Now let's get back to it. Right. And it's not being rude. Right. It's like let's get focused. We want to talk about this. I don't care that your kid missed the lunch bus or whatever they do for, or you I mean, but it's the lunch, but whatever it is. But what I care about is we're trying to get business done, and I find that a lot of people just waste a lot of time talking about
100%.
About nothing. I mean, and I'll tell you, I think another thing is because I think many people are ill prepared. When I go into a meeting. I'm prepared.
Schedule 30-minute meetings because that's perfect. I can get what I need to have done in 30 minutes. An hour is not. I don't have time, and B, an hour is not necessary because
I've been trying to do 45 minutes.
A, B, C, and D, and 45.
Be concise.
I better be coming out with a product, an end result, a whole law written, whatever, whole policy done. I don't have time, and then that's a waste of everybody's time. So you have to be strategic about that too. If you are leading a meeting, or if you're going to meet, what exactly do we need? What exactly are we talking about? Okay. Do we really need? And I'll say, I don't think we need 45 minutes for this. I don't think we need 60 minutes. Anyone that's worked for me, I do 30-minute meetings.
Safe to say that among you four, you are either the only or one of the few.
No, I'm the only.
No, there's 4 black female deputies, and there's only 6. No, there's 4 of us that are black, 1 white male, and 1 white female. So I'm blessed enough that my leadership team is predominantly black, strong black women. That's a lot of energy in those groups. It's good, but I don't have that problem there. We have it in other spaces with some of our
one of you
stuff. Yeah.
Now where I am, because of my department, I'm the only one. But if you combined it with Your Way Home, there's a deputy who's black. And that's it. So it would only be the 2 of us.
My question is the following. I have the same opportunities for advancement as everyone else. I would say I disagree. So I wouldn't agree. I definitely feel that there are opportunities, I think for some peers that have been called into meetings or committees that I have not. So I don't think I've had the same opportunities, but I will say whether it's been sort of a nonprofit or investment banking, that we all have allies. So I feel like even though I haven't been called into the same rooms, even though I've been sort of the only one, I've always found allies where I've worked.
Great.
I don't think I probably have been the only one that have felt overlooked, but I definitely have felt that some people have we're talking about sort of sponsorships. Some people, there's been managing directors when I was a banker or sort of the nonprofit world, sort of presidents that have taken sort of other associates or sort of junior VPs under their wings, sort of invited them to play golf, even though I know the sort of white peer wasn't into golf, but because he was a white male, the assumption is, we're going golfing versus Sakina, you come with us. So yes, I think it's probably not unique to me, but definitely I've had white colleagues where I felt people have taken them under their wings.
I definitely would agree. I think that if we weren't overlooked, then there wouldn't be a need for these different minority fellowships and things like that. I know in healthcare, there's a lot of minority fellowships or minority specialty programs to allow access or entry into certain positions or certain leadership roles within a certain profession where the minorities have the same or higher credentials than their white counterparts, but because we have often been overlooked or dismissed, or not the right skin color or maybe even less docile, right? Because sometimes some leadership positions, they just want a yes ma'am, yes sir, yes ma'am. And if that person of color is not that, then they're like, I know that person will lead correctly. So we won't consider them. But obviously there have been enough studies and numbers reported that minorities and women that are women are not well represented. And they're not going to admit, oh, we overlook them. They're not going to admit it like that. So what they do is create these special programs for us to supposedly give us access and entry into those spaces because of what the numbers say. And maybe they got their hands slapped because the numbers are low. So because if we had the same amount of opportunity, it would give us equal playing field. And we don't have equal playing field. So it would give us equal playing field. So since we don't have it, the one and onlys or the fews may have pushed while they're in those spaces and pushed and said, this is what you have to do. You have to create this type of mentorship, fellowship so that the numbers can increase. That's been my experience in the healthcare setting that I'm in.
Yep, and those programs probably going to be under attack now with the
yes.
Court decision. Like they're going after law firms, and I know, so like the big prize are federal contracts and diverse supplier programs and these fellowship programs.
Yeah.
So we have 6 months to advance.
Not 6 months. Not 6 months.
Any thoughts?
Go ahead, Dawn.
No, I agree with everything that's been said. I'm in government now, but I've been in private sector. And literally, I had a peer that was promoted to a supervision. I was in a very entry level position, but had been there for a couple years. And so is she. I come in one day and she's a supervisor. And I said, well, when was the job posted? We didn't think you were interested.
Some opportunities you don't know about. That's right, yes. So I feel like I've missed out on opportunities that I knew about. There's others probably, yes.
What do you mean? So I had to call them on that. Had no problem. I think I've always been I have a girlfriend, rest in peace, that used to call me a firecracker. And I've had that all my life for whatever reason, for various reasons. But I call them on it. I call it when I see the microaggressions.
At that point, did she have the job?
Oh, she had the job.
Okay.
They announced it at a staff meeting.
Okay. And
my God.
so how did it turn out? What happened?
I went to the CEO of the company, and it was a marketing company, and said XYZ. I came in the same time she did. I had the same credentials, and actually, I think I was finishing college, and she hadn't been to college. And within that next 6 months, I was promoted to a supervisor.
Oh, good for you. Good for you.
But if you hadn't spoken up, the chances are it would have never happened.
That is correct.
And that's how we miss our boat sometimes.
You had to wait
with
6
sales
months.
without us.
She waited a day.
And the line,
Because
we
we
didn't
don't
think
say
you'd be
anything.
interested, but then, why not ask? Like, that's based on what conversation you had with me.
That's right.
But there also, I think, what has to be addressed is those people making those decisions for you. I didn't think you would be interested. No. You have no right to make that decision for me. I am owed a conversation. I'm an employee here. If you want to look at the same levels, if you pick this person, we are at the same level. So I deserve a conversation. Don't make that decision for me. So I think, and it goes back to what I said earlier, calling them on their stuff.
That's right.
You have to.
You have to.
I feel like this time and sort of the next year will be telling if sort of what the initiatives after sort of George Floyd's death, where sort of DEI became in vogue,
Everybody
and was it lip service or was truly that a value of it, the institution? Because I know now truly like wanting to start a diverse supplier program that's on hold. Really sort of a lot of talk about sort of diversifying the student body, sort of faculty and staff, and sort of being sort of very, sort of pulling back in some of that language.
I think it's lip service. I've always thought it's lip service, and I've come out and said, even in the murder, the slaughter, I'm sure there's someone there, of George Floyd, that the window was open. And I've said this to everyone, while this window is open, jump in it. Do what you need to do. But there is a responsibility for those of us that are in a managerial position. In government, we're deputies, managerial deputy, C-suite. It's our responsibility to bring up the sister that's behind us. And I truly believe that. It's our responsibility.
That's adding to the stress. Louise was just talking about all of the stress that comes with the job.
I get that, but I feel obligated to do that. And whether or not you're mentoring, because if we're not doing it for each other, who's doing it?
No one.
And then you have folks that are sitting in the C-suite, like, you listen. They will dismiss you so quickly.
Yes, they will.
So while you're there, you need to be having your voice heard. And I truly believe that. If you're not willing to speak up, or you're fearful of speaking up, and I get the stressors, you don't need to be at the table.
I agree. I agree with that.
I have to say, too, when you talk about someone that's an ally looking out for, Dawn is really good at that. I've been blessed to have worked with her for the last 7 years. And when deputy positions were being, made available between Dawn and the gentleman that had a hand in me coming over to city government, we're the ones that made sure that I was able to move up to a deputy. So I always am very grateful to her for that. And then once we're in these positions, absolutely, it's our responsibility, and we've made it a point of trying to level the playing field, making sure that all opportunities are shared across the floor. If there's a position that's there, everyone needs to have an opportunity to apply. Everyone needs to know about it. We've had to push for that kind of transparency and making some of our colleagues do that, because they try to apply something right. Well, how are you recommending that person for this promotion? Did you share it across the floor? That's the policy now. And no, pull that back. We're not going to go to HR reports to me. Like, no, we're not. No, you got to post it internally first. But we had to push to make that happen. But that is our responsibility, because if not, and we had an issue on this in our department about that, based on the history, and Dawn was there a lot longer than me, and saying that it has never been equal. They've never had that. They've never had diversity at the top. We need to make sure this happens. So you have to be intentional. You have to reach back. And as exhausted as I said I am, it's still something that I feel very strongly about doing. And that's the only way. You got to push.
Yeah, you do. You do. And not only that, I mean, even getting there, and, Heloise has earned her position as a deputy. But I'm like, girl, do you also know apartment space comes with that? This comes with that. Like, seriously.
Making opportunities. Because if not, you would have been on sector. That's right.
Get all this. Get this. By the way, this also comes, like, everything. But Commerce Department, and I've been open publicly, has historically been a white male driven division. It's about economic development. So that's all it is.
Yes.
And then when you're in these rooms, I had to push back on women, white women preferably.
Yes.
We're trying to bring in their proteges to sit in like managerial meetings where others weren't getting the opportunity, but you're going to put them in a room. I said, no, you're not. If they're not a senior director, they're not sitting in this room to hear these discussions. And they've done stuff like, next I know, their protege sends me an email. Oh, I would love to get to know you better. Can I? Oh, no.
I don't have time.
You said no?
I said no. Check with my admin support for my calendar. No, I'm not. We're not playing these games. When you have other folks, women of color, Hispanic, nationalities that don't have that option. What I wanted to do is set the standard that you're not going to do that. First of all, a lot of folks that were in that room earned to be in that room. You're not going to bring someone that's
senior staff meeting.
This is a senior level meeting. You're not bringing someone in that just got there because you know, or they're junior, just to be in that conversation. If that's the case, we might as well open it up to
town
hall.
Have a town hall. That's right. But that's not what this was.
So,
Okay.
And I think the diversity that Heloise was mentioning, I think it's to the credit that there are Black women that are the head of that organization or that are deputies.
have you been described as being difficult, aggressive, angry in the workplace? Was it an accurate description? The answer is, have I been described this way? Absolutely. Was it warranted? I think women get pegged as being ambitious, aggressive, so on and so forth. I think Black women get called aggressive, angry, difficult when they stand up for themselves, combative. My challenge has always been with Black men in positions.
That's another difference.
Mine too.
That's
Mine too.
Yeah.
Mine
Always
too.
been with Black
Rarely
men.
supportive.
They're very rare.
To be continued.